Well, Whoopi Goldberg, I watched your Lifetime movie this weekend, A Day Late and a Dollar Short, and you were a producer on it. You narrated. You the lead actress. Tell us about this role because I've never seen you in a role like this before. The mother of a large family with lots of different issues going on. What brought you to that particular part?
Well, I got a call from a friend who is the executive producer who said, "Hey, I'm going to do Day Late and a Dollar Short for Lifetime. Interested?" And I was like, "Sure." And he said, you worked with Terry before, and I was trying to wait to see if I could figure out who he was talking about because I didn't know exactly what he was saying, but I knew I wanted to be part of it because I love this guy. And he was really, I was, oh yes, cool, cool, cool. And then I realized this is yet another one where, well, I don't even want to give it away, but you know what happens. This is the second time this has happened to me in a Dave McMillan piece, so it's kind of fun.
And what's interesting is, a few years ago you told Larry King you were going to retire from acting, and boy, that seemed to have opened up the floodgates. Now you're producing this. I mean, and you did For Color Girls. I mean, it's so great to see you back acting in these really meaty roles. So were you surprised at just how challenging this one was?
No, I think what happened with me is I just wanted to back off some of the things I felt I was going to have to start to do because I just didn't think they were right for me. It wasn't right for me, and I said I needed to take a break, and so that's what I did. And then I took the job at The View, and then I was doing that for about 4 or 5 years. And then the folks over at Paramount, I met up with them, said I really, because I noticed they were doing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I said, well, gee, I'd like to be part of that. And they're like, come on. I was like, no, really. I've always wanted to be in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And they were like, okay. And, people always say okay, and then they forget about you. But these guys remembered. And, For Color Girls was a great piece, just a very tough character, one I didn't like at all. And so it took me a year to get her out of my body. I'd never had this issue before. But suddenly I was stuck with this horrible woman in my head, and she wouldn't leave. And then finally she did, and it was like, oh my God, it's like the sun came up again. So this, this came along, and it was like, oh, this will be fun, because it's probably right for, this is the second parent I've played of sort of a big bro. The other one was Kingdom Come, which is awesome. And so I said, this will be fun. And then they got great actors to play with, it always helps when the actors are fun.
Oh, sure. It's a wonderful cast, including Aniki Nanu Rose, who's nominated for a Tony right now. So, yeah, she's marvelous.
One of the things I really liked about this was how you see what your dream is at the beginning, and then it's such an uplifting ending. It really ties it all together in a really nice bow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a good story. It's a good story. It's slightly predictable, but hey, if it's a good ride, who cares? I mean, you know that eventually she's going to try and work it out for the family. Now, it doesn't work the way she wants it to work, but it works in spite of itself, So all of the things that she's trying to do before her next challenge, she doesn't get it all done. But she leaves enough information that gets the point to them, and they are able to sort of take it to the next level. So I was kind of proud of it, and when I saw it, I realized it was a good thing I was in the process of losing 30 pounds because I was as big as a football player. And the other thing, because I missed a lot of stuff because they hadn't shot it while I was there, and so to see all the stuff at the end really sort of took my breath away.
Well, what's interesting is, growing up, I mean, TV movies, they were just a staple of programming, and now they're sort of a dying breed, and Lifetime's come back and done some really interesting and provocative pieces. As a producer, is that something that could you see producing, even if you're not starring in TV movies going forward? I mean, is that...
My company's always produced stuff. produced for Lifetime, actually.
Yeah, Strong Medicine, sure, 6 seasons. Yeah.
And for HBO, we did Ruby's Bucket of Blood, and then we've done a lot of stuff, Tom Leonardis, my partner, and I. You know, we try to put a lot of stuff out, but because we're small and we do everything ourselves, sometimes it's just we realize that we can't afford to do it. It's just too big. Yeah. So, you know, we try to stick to stuff we can do now. Because once you get into partnership, you know, with other people, you lose a great deal of what you've created. So you want to sort of do it with other people if you have to, and by yourself if you can. So we try to do as much as we can.
Well, it's interesting because, of course, we're an awards website, so you mentioned producing, and that's sort of half of your EGOT is from producing projects. And also, we have to give you credit for being part of the 30 Rock episode that popularized that term EGOT. I mean, we were calling it the Grand Slam.
Right. I'd never heard, I'd never heard of it. I'd never heard that word EGOT until 30 Rock, and I was like, what is it? And they were like, you have it. I was like,
yeah, you do. And you know what's as I said, we're awards nuts, and the idea that you got two of yours, your E and your T, within a few weeks of each other in 2002, and for both things for producing. And I have to ask you about, you produced that TV special on documentary on Hattie McDaniel, who was a first African American to win an Academy Award. And so many people don't understand all the firsts that you've done, like the first African American woman to be nominated twice for the Academy Award, the first woman to solo host the Oscars.
I didn't know anybody realized that, but yeah.
Yeah. So now you've produced another documentary about a pioneering woman, Moms Mabley. And both Chris and I were talking. I remember watching her on Merv Griffin and Mike Douglas, and it's so wonderful to see this documentary. I mean, so did you, that was your intro to her, or did you have the records? Did you listen to those records back in the...
Yeah, we grew up with them. My mom had them. And so, we had them, and they were funny. And she was funny because we got to see her on television. My mother allowed us to watch. And I thought she was quite fascinating because she was able to say things that I understood as a kid, and also to make the adults laugh. And as I got older and I started to listen, I started to understand that she had the ability to tell the same joke to two separate groups of people at the same time and have both groups laugh for different reasons.
When you contacted a lot of the people that are in this documentary, like Arsenio Hall or Joan Rivers or Robert Klein or Eddie Murphy or any of them, and you told them what you were working on, what was their immediate reaction?
I'm in. They were very happy that someone was talking about her, because she's not on people's radar and hasn't been for quite some time, which I don't understand, but part of it is being a black performer because, you don't get you don't have reruns of shows like you have with Burns and Allen or with Lucy and such. So you don't have a lot of that. You only have records, which no one really listens to anymore because you can select everything you want from the group that you want it. You don't have to become someone who, I don't know, we were a little more, I feel, well-rounded because we had to buy the whole album. And you ended up having to listen to other stuff by the same artist that maybe, you didn't know, you only wanted one song, but you had the whole album. Or you listened to the radio where you would hear James Brown and Glenn Campbell and the Supremes and Herb Alpert in the same half hour, and you could make a decision about what you liked and then pursue that. But you got an array of things to listen to, and I sort of feel you had more choice. Now you can just go in your niche and never know that there's anything else. So I feel like in some ways, young folks in particular get shortchanged opportunity to know that there's a lot of different stuff, like Moms.
What's interesting.
Answer.
Yeah. You're mentioning records, and of course, your Grammy comes from your the recording of your Broadway show. You know, only the second of three women to win the comedy album. You know,
I
Lily
just found it
Tomlin. Yeah, Lily Tomlin precedes you, and then it's almost 3 decades before Kathy Griffin wins. What is that? Why that women are as funny as men? What is it that with that category that there's a bias against them?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't get it. I mean, it can't be that there weren't that many albums up. I would assume Kathy's been up.
Oh, sure.
You know, but why she didn't win is I don't know. I don't understand how people vote because of course it's, you know, it's individual. So people like this, they don't like that, and I think, wow, really? But it's subjective. So you kind of just got to go, oh, all right. And 30 years is a long time. It's a little suspect.
On your 2 Oscar nominations, Color Purple and Ghost, were when you got there to the ceremony on the evening of either one of them, were the expectations different? Did you feel like you were going to win for Ghost, but maybe not for? I mean, I'm just wondering about what your thoughts were going into those evenings.
My thoughts were, I hope I don't fall in these heels. That's the first thing I thought. And you know, people don't understand this, but if you've watched the Oscars all your life, and suddenly you're nominated for one, it doesn't even matter if you win because you can just run around and saying, yes, I got nominated for an Oscar. And I mean, that was a huge deal for me because my mother and I and my brother, we would watch. I would make speeches all the time. But, you know, the greatest thing was I got to watch someone I respected dearly win something. She had been nominated, Geraldine had been nominated, what, 6 times, 7 times, and never won.
That's right.
So I'd like to feel like all of our collective energy went into securing her win because, you know, she passed the next year. And it was like,
yeah.
You know, thank God she got it. I'm glad she deserved it. She was wonderful in Trip 2.
And
so I was very happy, you know.
What's amazing about that piece is that, you know, again, with Lifetime, Cicely Tyson getting to recreate what won her the Tony last year in the film version of that. I mean, you talk about roles to play. I mean, there's one that's waiting for you, I would think, in a couple of decades.
Well, I don't know. I think there's probably going to be a lot of stuff for me. You know, one of the things I don't want to do is I don't want to recreate too many things that other people have done. I'd like to find some new stuff only because, you know, as soon as you change color or you change this, it becomes a big deal and it's no longer about the work. You know, great pieces deserve really fine, great actors, which Cecily is. So I was thrilled to see that the material garnered both these brilliant actresses the attention they deserved. It's kind of wonderful when you think about it.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned about new work, because of course when you go on Broadway in Forum, you're replacing Nathan Lane. You do Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, recreating the play.
That was so terrible. Don't never mention it again. We forgot about that one.
Well, I disagree, having seen it.
Oh my God! And you clearly you are high. Thank you for that, because that's very sweet to say. But I miscast myself in a piece I wanted to do very badly, and just I wasn't up for it. I wasn't up for it. But see, Pseudolus makes perfect sense. And I'm trying to convince them that, you know, in 2 years when the genie wants a break in Aladdin, that I'd like to play with that.
Well, what about Ma Rainey? I mean, that was, you were, no? When you did that, you didn't?
No, it takes a different kind of, you got to be a bigger woman. That's the only way. Not physically bigger, but she's bigger. She's bigger than I was able to take her. It wasn't fulfilling, yeah. You know, eventually maybe I can do it, but you know, I so burned myself, I don't think I could ever do it again.
Well, I think you're a harsher critic than anyone else. You know, Chris and I were talking before we came on about the about the EGOT, and what I referenced was what I love is that who precedes you in getting that. You're number 10. Number 9 is Mike Nichols, who brings you to Broadway.
Right.
And then number 11 is Scott Rudin, who was one of the producers on your biggest movie hits, Sister Act and Sister Act 2. So this club, does it ever get together for meetings? I mean, do you?
No, we don't. We wave at each other. I think most people don't know who each other are. You know what I mean?
No, but I think that's changing because this year on the Oscars, when Robert Lopez joined your group and became the 12th, the narrator, the announcer actually talked about that as he's walking up the steps. And then his wife gave him a EGOT bracelet backstage. So I think you all at least ought to call or email as somebody joins your society.
True. Somebody has to be paying attention. I will try.
Also, on speaking of the Oscars, back in the early 90s, you get to start hosting. I think you hosted, what, 4 times?
That's right.
Yeah.
Starting out with right after Billy Crystal had hosted 2 or 3 times. Tell us about your reaction when they called you to discuss that, as well as that first time.
I said, "Is this okay with you? What's going on?" He said, "No, I had to take a break. I got to take a break." I was like, "Okay." And I said, "Anything I should know?" And he said, "Just be funny. And remember, this is not your show, this is their show. And basically, they'll give you the first 5 minutes, the audience will. And then after that, they want to know who won. They really just want to know who won. So flow as well as you can, and be prepared for anything to happen and go have a good time. And if you're too dirty, they'll beep you. Or they'll just shake their eyes at you or something. But go have fun. So I did. I had a great time. I came out of the ceiling, and at one point I became Queen Elizabeth, with the powder, and it's so dumb. People said, "Oh, what is she doing? She's making some sort of statement in whiteface." It's like, no, duh. You don't. I'm dressed as the Queen, man. Really? I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah. You were the African Queen, as I recall, did you?
That's right. And you want to have a good time. And so we did. We had lots of fun with it, and I got to at one of the shows I did. I just changed my clothes a whole bunch so I could wear all of the wardrobe in the movies of the year that was nominated. And I had on the most wonderful, gigantic diamond ring from Harry Winston. It was like this big, and I was dressed as, I think, somebody from Beloved. And I said, "As God is my witness, I'll never, clean this ring again," or something. But it was fun, and people understood it and they had fun.
And I mean, something that I think, you gave one of the great Oscar acceptance speeches when you talked to the crowd, told them how you'd wanted to be one of them. But what I think something that's, I don't think people understand, but you love entertainment. You love great television, like you hosted the I Love Lucy 50th anniversary. You love The Wizard of Oz. I mean, you're just thrilled every day to be part of that industry, aren't you?
Yes, and people, people are very cynical. They think you're full of BS. But for me, this is the industry I wanted to be in. And everyone would smile very nicely, and they'd say, well, I'm sure there's something there for you. And then, when the Miracle of Miracles showed up and I suddenly was a movie star, people were like, "What? Wow. How did that happen?" Because you don't look like you're supposed to look. You don't sound like you're supposed to sound. You don't dress like you're supposed to dress. And so, and then it became I wasn't as good as I had been in stuff I'd done before. I mean, it just became a whole bunch of stuff. And, I tend to give critics a little bit of a pass because sometimes I just think they're the really good ones. The really good ones don't have to hurt you to critique you. They don't have to put you down or make you sound dumb. And people write things, or I was excited to go to everything, and so I was invited, and I wanted to go. But cynical people say, "Oh, she'd go to the opening of an envelope," not realizing that careers are this long. And if you're lucky enough to have a long one, you want to get in as much living in that career as you can. And so I wanted to go to everything, and I wanted to have fun. I wanted to meet everybody because I was interested. And I find nowadays, you know, that I still carry that in me, but I see a lot of, you know, too cool for school. Folks are too cool for school and they can't be bothered. But you know, the Oscars to me are and will always be a huge deal because it is, regardless of what people say and how they think this happens, you vote for your peers. You vote for your peers. You know, I see the movies. I don't vote for my friends. I vote for the performance that got to me. You know, and that's what it is. And so I just always want to say to people, you know, look around and see where you are, because there's no place like this. There's a lot of awards out there. You can go to as many of them as you want, but there's nothing like the Academy Awards. Nothing. You know, so if you get nominated, be respectful, because when you look at the list of people who were brilliant actors who never got nominated, you're lucky. You know, you're lucky. So I think people should respect that. You know, and I know people say, oh, we got to get young people, but young people will only come and watch if they're interested in the movies that are up that year. That's how that works. But somehow, every couple of years, people say, "Oh no, we have to do something spectacular and get the young people interested." Well, it doesn't work that way. But you know, who am I? I'm just an old broad in a little box right now.
I'm glad you brought up your love for the Oscars, because we've had several Oscar voters on over the last 3 or 4 years, and I always like to ask this question. You said you like to vote for performances that get to you. What does that mean? What types of performances get to Whoopi Goldberg?
Well, great performances get to me. You know, what is the Lupita Nyong'o?
Mm-hmm.
Her performance got to me. She wiped me out. I was exhausted after I saw her. You know, who else? Oh my God! See, you're asking me now, and I can't. My brain is blank.
Well, you didn't have to give specifics unless you want to, but even just like what types of things, what when you sit down in front of a film, you know, would make you want to mark their name on a ballot?
If I come out of there going, wow, I want to meet that person. I want to meet that actor. That knocked me out. I just want to tell them it's great. Or when I get up and have to go and write a note, which I do sometimes. I send notes to people, just say, "This your film knocked me out." Like Matthew McConaughey. Matthew tore me to shreds. Tore me to shreds. Because I remember, you know, when, oh my God, wonderful actor, who did Milk?
Sean Penn.
Say it again?
Sean Penn?
Yes, Sean Penn. He knocked me out, you know, and I wanted to write him a note, but I couldn't. I couldn't put into words what was happening, you know. But I write to people and I just say, you know, for what it's worth, that was spectacular, you know, because you want to go on the ride, and it doesn't matter if it's a comedy. I mean, The Hangover. I'm telling you, The Hangover killed me. Tears coming down Zach Galifianakis and actually everybody, because it was so fresh and so right, and you didn't want it to stop. I would have been happy if he'd stayed up on the roof for another couple of weeks, you know, just to see what would happen. I like stuff that sort of takes me and knocks me around gently.
Well, in your day job as a moderator of The View, I mean, it's sort of this, you've made so many films and all the work, you know, this stream of co-stars, including, I think of Neil Patrick Harris,
Mm-hmm.
who we were with, and seeing what he's become. But we have to just, because you're nominated this year again for Outstanding Talk Show Host with the rest of the ladies on The View, just last week, that the unbelievable attention that was focused on The View as Barbara Walters signed off, and so how long before, have you already gotten a phone call from her, because she's remaining the co-executive producer? Has she called in to talk about the crosstalk?
No. She and I will occasionally go to lunch or to dinner. Listen, what happened last week was phenomenal, and I don't think people really understood why it was such a big deal, because I remember television prior to Barbara, when there were no women anchoring the news. There was no one, you know, and I don't think I consciously said, gee, that's kind of weird, because that's what I knew. But then you saw Barbara, and then, you know, here in New York, you had Melba Tolliver, you know, on Channel 7, and then suddenly there were women who were starting to surface who were doing more than just being weather chicks. You know, they were doing the serious journalistic news. And when you look at the fact that she broke that glass ceiling with her head and her body, and, you know, that glass ceiling, because it was a high one, and she broke every pane, and all of these other women sort of, you know, started swimming to the top. It's kind of fantastic, and you saw only, you know, 50 or 25 of them, but that was just from New York. Think of the rest of the world. Forget the rest of the country, the rest of the world. Because had this not happened here, it would never have happened anywhere else. And I don't think it continues to happen the way it happens here.
Well, listen, thank you so much for your time today. Good luck at the daytime Emmys. You're going to be on the primetime ballot, I think, at least 4 or 5 times, so good luck with that as well.
And if it doesn't happen, hey, you know, the work is still great. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't diminish what you do. It just means that there was some really strong things out there, and there's a lot of great stuff this year. So I'm not sweating it. I'm just happy that I got that damn documentary done. I'm so glad, because we're getting ready to make another one. So it's heaven, and so thanks for being, you know, the folks that allow us to talk to people and talk about the work that we do. I appreciate it very much.
Oh, and I know, just on the Moms Mabley, I know you'd mentioned that you thought about doing it as a stage role for yourself. Yeah. So
yeah.
Don't.
That will happen.
Good.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll like your performance this time. Maybe you'll.
Well, you know, I did it years and years and years and years ago, because I love doing it, because it's all about moms as material. You know, it's not a biography.
Right.
But here when we put it together, it will be, you know, her backstage doing, you know, rehearsing material, as opposed to, you know, and then she comes in and she's like this because of what happened to her in her life. And none of that. It's just the material, because the material is brilliant. 50 years later.
Yeah. Thanks again.
Good luck with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.